Here is a list of the most compelling comments we've received in the last 5 days. Want to get in on it? Leave a constructive and positive comment below to increase your chances, and we'll choose the best ones. Victim's handbag helped the FBI find the reason for a weird plane crash. Airport employees did their best to find the answers on November 1, 1955, as United Airlines Flight 629 exploded minutes after leaving the tarmac, but to no avail. The plane was in ideal condition and had gone on 2 flights earlier that day, but now it crashed, and the reason for that remained unknown. But then, investigators found a victim's handbag which contained extraordinary leads that helped them put their fingers on what had happened. November 1, 1955 had to be a busy day for United Airlines Flight 629. It had taken off from New York City's LaGuardia Airport, headed for a stopover in Chicago, and then moved to Denver's Stapleton International Airport. The plane arrived at 6:11 p.m. The original crew left aboard, giving a chance to a fresh batch of individuals. Little did they know they were taking their last steps on land. Flight 629 had taken off twice that day and wasn't looked over for any issues. Its third flight had to be at 6:52 p.m., this time headed for Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, the plane never reached its destination. At first, everything was going smoothly. 4 minutes into the voyage, the captain let the ground crew know that things were going just as planned. But then, the control tower workers, the flight crew, and the passengers on board would face something they had never expected. Only 7 minutes after being informed that everything was okay, Stapleton International Airport's air traffic controllers suddenly noticed 2 bright flashes of light in the Colorado sky. It was 7:03 p.m. when Flight 629 had crashed. In a minute after seeing the initial bright flashes, people could see those 2 lights falling to the ground. No doubt, staff members overlooking Flight 629 were hoping for the best while expecting the worst. And the worst happened. The local authorities got into their cars and started searching for the plane straight away. They had no idea where it could fall, but still hoped some passengers managed to survive. Soon, phone calls from Longmont, a town 30 miles away from the Stapleton International Airport, soon began to flood the local police station. The citizens were reporting they had heard a loud explosion, and now the rain from the metal remnants was falling on them. It was apparent they were talking about Flight 629. The plane that somehow managed to slip away from a cross-inspection now left its details across 6 square miles of Weld County. When authorities arrived on the scene, they didn't see what they expected to witness. Despite the outside chances, they hoped to find some alive passengers from the flight. However, they had to face a heartbreaking discovery. The flight's 5 crew members and 39 passengers were all killed in the explosion. You see, the oldest victim was aged 81, while the youngest was just 13 months old. This massive tragedy made headlines far away from Colorado. The entire nation was shocked about the incident. The authorities quickly started an investigation into the crash as things looked quite suspicious. Once the investigators gathered all the debris from the plane crash, they made an odd discovery about the nature of it. It became crystal clear to the Civil Aeronautics Board that this was no mere accident. While having no additional answers, investigators determined that Flight 629 had blown up with a tremendous force. Their suspicions arose when they found out the plane hadn't malfunctioned mid-flight, nor did it have any defects. This finding led them to the terrifying conclusion they all hoped not to arrive at. You see, all the evidence led to the fact that the crash had happened as the result of a deliberately planned attack. Authorities supposed someone had brought a bomb on board while having no idea why. Someone must have had a vast personal grievance to kill 44 innocent people, or at least something to get from such a deliberate act of cruelty. However, the authorities didn't want to make hasty decisions without anything concrete. If only they knew the road that lay ahead. You see, investigators didn't find any clues at the plane crash site which could answer all the questions, or at least a few of them. Even though they meticulously looked over every piece of debris, they found nothing. But then, one chilling discovery solidified the notion of a planned attack and turned it into an unavoidable truth. It was discovered that 4 pieces of sheet metal had the marks of chemicals used when creating dynamite. The investigation hit an absolutely new level. The authorities needed more professional help and reached out to the FBI, who first suspected the very same flight passengers who had died in the incident. The FBI needed to know whether some people on board had an ulterior motive to smuggle the bomb on and kill themselves along with 43 innocent individuals. If there was a chance to find such a person, the FBI was determined to do it. They started rummaging through all the passengers' belongings while focusing on people who were actually from Colorado. After some negotiations, they realized there was a slight possibility that the demolishing could have come from someone who wasn't native to this state. Then, the investigators discovered that several people had recently taken out life insurance policies. For the FBI, it was a solid reason to start suspecting them and raising red flags. Then, during the investigation, one passenger stood out from the rest. It was 53-year-old Denver resident Daisy King, who looked the least likely to be the one who killed 43 people at once. Daisy was a widow and a business owner. She was definitely someone who had something to lose. What's more, she'd been heading to Alaska to visit her daughter. Nevertheless, the devil is in the details. The FBI found one little thing that caught their attention. It was something that managed to survive while all the other luggage had been blown to bits. While looking over the remains of the items, investigators managed to find Daisy King's handbag. When they opened it, they were more than baffled. There were several newspaper clippings with her son, a small-time criminal named John Gilbert Graham. But as it appeared a bit later, John wasn't what could be described as a first-time lawbreaker. Instead, his troubled past was mainly connected with his highly abnormal upbringing. Daisy welcomed her first son to this world in the winter of 1932. Unfortunately, he didn't receive the love and support that a child needs. Soon after he was born, his father died, so Daisy made a decision to put her child in an orphanage, as she had no means to bring him up. You might suppose this woman planned to look for a way to get back on track and take her son from the orphanage, but unfortunately, you'd be wrong. Despite leaving little John with a promise to take him back, Daisy quickly moved on with her life. She got married for the third time and never retrieved her son from that orphanage. The woman started a new life and left her previous one in the past. When Daisy's third husband passed on, she was left with an impressive inheritance and used this money to open her own restaurant, named the Crown Drive-In Diner. It quickly became popular and garnered its fair share of loyal customers. By 1954, Daisy didn't know what to do with her life. Having a daughter in Alaska and her own business, the woman thought it was time to track down her long-lost son and pick things up where she'd left off 22 years earlier. They'd meet just a year before the crash. When the woman found out her first son was arrested for several crimes, including embezzlement, forgery, and even bootlegging, she felt a great deal of guilt. He could have had a better life if she were there to bring him up and guide him. Then she did something many of us could find foolish. The woman had made John the beneficiary of her life insurance policy not long before the plane crash. What's even odder, it had been recently reported that her restaurant had been exploded and sustained some damage. When the woman found her son and informed him of her plans, John and Daisy found themselves standing to receive some sizable insurance payouts. With that in mind, John suddenly became the FBI's prime suspect. Such evidence couldn't be neglected, so the FBI headed for John's residence. When they visited him, the mystery surrounding the crash fell into tiny pieces. At that point, John was probably on cloud nine, knowing that he now owned oodles of money. But when the FBI knocked on his doors, everything changed straight away. Of course, the young man said he had nothing to do with a plane explosion, yet the evidence all over his home told of the opposite. When the investigators rummaged through his belongings, they'd found a great deal of life insurance policies. But when they looked into the garage, everything became more than clear. The FBI agents found all the necessary materials that it would take to create a bomb big enough to explode a plane with 44 passengers. Even though John had the perfect alibi, saying that his mother had packed her own luggage, nobody believed that a woman would have thought to blow herself up along with other innocent people. Yet John didn't plan to capitulate. He even said that he deeply loved his mother and would never hurt her. On the flip side, witnesses couldn't describe their relationship as having been loving. Instead, they claimed the mother and son often fought after the big reunion. Looks like there was a big argument between them, and that's how John's alibi broke into tiny pieces. But the man kept swearing it was his mother who put the bomb into her own luggage. However, unfortunately for him, his wife Gloria broke and admitted she'd seen her husband pack Daisy's bags for her. With a great deal of evidence against him, John couldn't find an angle that would work in his favor. Now there was only one more way for him to go down. Finally, the man broke and admitted that he put a stick of dynamite into his mother's bag. The judge gave him the death penalty. Before stepping into the gas chamber on January 11, 1957, he said something that caught everyone off guard. The young man confidently claimed before his execution, "As far as feeling remorse for these people, I don't. I can't help it. Everybody pays their way and takes their chances. That's just the way it goes." Due to the scarcity of laws regarding bombing commercial planes, Graham was only charged with murdering his mother. This fact brought about new laws passed concerning attacks on commercial flights and other forms of domestic terrorism.